Because everybody always, when some people get on everybody's. No, I don't want.
Is this count eating? This count eating?
When I was a kid, you know the Super Bowl baseball game, you get at baseball games? It was big. And now you get it and it's like tiny and you chew it twice and it's gone. It was good when I was a kid. Alright, first thing we're going to do is look at the 10th Amendment. Where is the 10th Amendment? That's right, it's in the Bill of Rights, it's in the back of the book in the dark colored stuff after that. Now, I might want to shift gears here. Let's see. I'm going to do something I've never done in here before. Look at the 14th Amendment. I've never really given the 14th Amendment justice. And I told you it was about citizenship, but there's a whole lot more in there. I just want to read this real fast so we can. I'll read the white part, since the tan part can be weird. The principal purpose of this amendment was to make former slaves citizens of both the U.S. and the state in which they lived. The amendment also forbids states to deny equal rights to any person. The terms of the amendment clarify how citizenship is acquired. All persons naturalized. What's naturalized mean? Naturalized means you're born somewhere else and you become a citizen. Akeem Olajuwon, he's getting too old, y'all don't even know him. He became, Arnold Schwarzenegger was naturalized. If you become a citizen, you have to go through all the process. Part of our problem is we make it where it's almost impossible to do that. We make it really difficult for somebody to try to do it right, which is why so many people do it wrong. If we made it where it's not like we're punishing you to do it right. If we made it where it was a little better for you to do it right, I'd like to see that. Anyway, all persons naturalized or granted citizenship according to law are U.S. citizens. Anyone born in the United States is also a citizen, regardless of the nationality of his or her parents. Does that cause any trouble? I mean, that's about the most common sense thing to say. If someone is born here, they're a citizen. There are companies or there are people in China who have a business letting people like pregnant Chinese women rent an apartment in California so their child can be an American citizen. There are people in other countries that come here for the express purpose for their kid to be born here so they can be citizens and have certain things and get certain rights. I don't blame them for that. That's kind of abusing the system, kind of, you know what I mean? But you can't say, well, just because you're born here, you're not a citizen. You can't say that, because that's what it means to be a citizen. Unless they are diplomatic representatives of another country or enemies during a wartime occupation. So I guess okay. This amendment does not grant citizenship to American Indians on reservations, but Congress later passed a law that did so. By living in a state, every U.S. citizen automatically becomes a citizen of that state as well. Pacer, what's the most disappointed you've ever been in your life? You might not even remember it. I know Colts was this. They found out, I don't know how old y'all were, that little Christy was not born in Texas. Wasn't that a horrible day? And Colton, you're not even Texan. She was born in New Mexico. It's not her fault. Her dad worked at a feedlot in West Texas, and the closest hospital was Hobbs, New Mexico. They had to go to Hobbs, New Mexico. The thing I'm disappointed in is he didn't bring some dirt, put under the bed or something, where you could actually kind of be born in Texas, you know. I would have done that. I'd have thought of that. The phrase due process of law has been construed to forbid the states to violate most rights protected by the Bill of Rights. It also has been interpreted as protecting other rights by its own force. The statement that a state cannot deny anyone, quote, equal protection of the laws has provided the basis for many Supreme Court rulings on civil rights. For example, the court has outlawed segregation in public schools. The justices declared that equal protection means a state must make sure all children, regardless of race, have equal opportunity for education. This section proposes a penalty for states that refuse to give the vote in federal elections to all who qualify. States that restrict voting can have their representation in Congress cut down. This penalty, however, has never been used. Parts of this section have been set aside by the 19th and 26th Amendments. Wow. I guess this is added later. This section of historical interest only, its purpose was to keep federal officials who joined the Confederacy from becoming federal or state officers again. In payment of debts. Anyway, that's the big deals. All right, now let's look at the 10th Amendment. 10th Amendment. I'm going to read the 10 right. The power is not delegated. What's delegated mean? Yeah, if I delegate responsibility, that means I tell Jacob, all right, Jacob, you're in charge of this. I've delegated responsibility. You got to do this. The power is not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution, nor prohibited to the states, or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's pretty simple. That's the two list things we talked about. Anything that is not given to the federal government by the Constitution or denied to the states by the Constitution, states and the people have say-so and have control over it. That is the 10th Amendment. We are in charge of everything, not denied to the states and not given to the federal government. All right? So there you go. That's number one, right? Everybody write that down. Was that smart of them? What's going to happen 100 years from now? When the woman won't be around. America won't be around. What's going to happen 100 years from now? Do we have any idea? We don't know. They didn't either. So they said anything else that comes, this is plenty for the federal government, anything else that pops up, we'll just let the states do it. Who do you think liked that?
State.
Who's federal? Anti-federalists. Anti-federalists saw that, they probably, yeah! Probably threw up, something like that. All right, now go back. There's a couple of these I want you to look at. See if you can find the powers, some of the states' reserve powers. Where would you find that at? Take a wild guess. Use your clues that you have. Where would you find that at? Naughty. What's that? What page would you find that on? What? Number two. Question number two. Where would you find? Where's some of the states' powers? Where would you find those at? See how smart you guys are.
Same place.
Page 4.
Other right.
Anybody have any idea how to find where number 2 is?
Page 2.
The index.
No, don't do that. It's hard. It's not at all.
Page 1.
I really need to slap y'all.
It's probably in that.
Look at number 2. Okay? Where would you find the answer to number 2?
Oh, number 1.
No.
No.
Look at number
Just
2.
wrote it down, didn't we?
We wrote number 1 down. Page 96. see. How do we know that?
That's a good question. I don't know how y'all know that.
Black. Way to go, Black. Awesome.
Where'd you say that?
Look at your paper up there. Page 96. There you go. That's where we start. Man, and y'all are the future. Y'all are the future leaders of this country. I'm very, very scared about when I'm in my wheelchair and okay. Yeah, look at 96. See if anybody can find some of the powers of the Constitution. Anybody found anything?
There's a bunch of stuff under two terms.
There's a bunch of stuff in like the third paragraph,
Third?
no, fourth paragraph.
Which fourth paragraph?
No, like the second to last.
What page? Are y'all on 96?
Talking about the too powerful government.
Okay, what you got? What you got there, like? Tell me.
He wrote extensively on the virtues of dividing power between different parts of government according to the lines of view. Dividing power was the best way to defend people's freedom from too powerful governments, and it would be thoroughly absorbed by the
All right.
framer of the Constitution.
Look up who said they saw a little. Did y'all see this little powers of the state governments? It's actually on 99. I didn't mean it was on 96, so that's where we're going to start. See 99. There's some of the powers of state governments. What's that first one there? Draw electoral district lines. We're going to take a couple minutes. Look at that. There are congressional. We're going to get to this when we get to Congress. Or when we get to, yeah, we will. Reapportionment, all that stuff. Texas has, let's say Texas has 35 representatives in Congress. And each one of them representatives represents about 700,000 people. Okay. I gotta wait. I'm never going to ask you what powers the states have. Just want you to be aware of it. So how many reps did I say Texas has? I don't know if it's exactly 35. It might be 36, it might be 34. We'll find out together later. 33. All right. Sorry, wrong. Golly. I know. Boy. Now, Ken, could we just say put 35 squares? Why not?
More people.
Because this square would have about 8 million people. This square would have 7. This square would have, we can't do that. So you got to draw the lines to where each district has about 700,000 people. So you end up looking like modern art. Some of them are tiny. In Dallas, Fort Worth, they're tiny. You get to West Texas, they're huge. And there's no squares. It's weird looking lines. The people that draw that is the state legislature in Austin. Congress draws those lines. They determine where those lines are going to be. What are they going to do? Who's in charge of the Texas House and the Texas Senate? What party? Republicans right now. So Republicans draw these lines. How are they going to draw these lines? They're going to give themselves an advantage. That's called gerrymandering. We'll get to that later. It's illegal to do that, but it happens every single time. I don't do it as much now. We when I teach receivers to block, one of the things I tell them they can do is you can't grab them or put your hands on the side or your hands on the top because that's holding. But you can have an open hand in the chest, and if you go up, you can get your thumbs under the shoulder pad and shove their shoulder pads up into their throat, and they're not as worried about making a tackle then. And it's a way to hold them, right? It's cheating, but it's not necessarily cheating. Republicans are always going to draw the lines to give themselves an advantage. Democrats are always going to draw the lines to give themselves an advantage, but it can't be obvious. Does that make sense? And every year, every time they redraw the lines, God, remind me, I got to show you, I forgot. The other party sues, and then judges end up drawing the lines. But the states get to draw those lines. The national government doesn't. States get to tax. They're also in charge of elections. Wise County is in charge of Wise County elections, and the states are in charge of their election, even the president election, Congress elections. The states are in charge of those elections. The federal government's not in charge of those. So, big things there. I would say district lines, states drawing the district lines, states in charge of elections. Those are probably the big ones. That's good enough. What else we got? Concurrent. What's concurrent mean? I know this is boring, but just make sure you keep up with this, okay? Don't quit on it. What's concurrent mean? We've done this now. Concur does mean that. Concurrent means it goes on at the same time. Federal government and state governments, a concurrent power that they got. Tell me a concurrent power they got. Jacob, I'm not it's none of my business. Did that food you ate cost more than what it cost?
Sure.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it did, yes. I'm talking about the price, and then it's going to cost more than what the price is. Why? Taxes. Taxing is a concurrent power. States get to tax, federal government gets to tax. That's a concurrent power. Can the states print their own money? No. Is that good?
Yeah.
That'd be really confusing and get really complicated. In case you want to go buy a sandwich in Oklahoma, you'd have to have Oklahoma money. You know what that would be. So concurrent powers are going on at the same time. Supreme law of the land. Have we done that in here? What does this almost kind of look like?
A ladder.
Kind of like a ladder. Not really, but kind of. I'll try to get too detailed. All right. The top rung, the supreme law of the land. What does supreme mean in Spanish? Sour cream. Supreme means sour cream. How do we know that? Burrito, no sour cream. Burrito supreme, sour cream. Taco, no sour cream. Taco supreme, sour cream. So therefore, sour cream must be supreme in Spanish, right? Does that make sense? What about in Italian? What does supreme mean? Everything. Means everything. You get a supreme pizza, it's got everything they got on it. All the weird stuff, all the gross stuff. Don't you ever look at that person, I want a supreme pizza, you're like, it's got all the crap on it though. I didn't want it. You know, look at that, little green things. That's what you pick off the pizza when you get it, you know. Anyway, that's the Constitution. The supreme law of the land. Is anything in the country supposed to contradict what the Constitution says? It's the rule book. Below that is federal law. Federal law is not supposed to contradict the Constitution. It's the next rung here. What's below federal law? State law. And what would be below state law? Local law. Local law is not supposed to contradict state law. State law is not supposed to contradict federal law. Federal law. So everything answers to the Constitution. These three all answer to the Constitution. These two have to answer to this. This one has to answer to that. That kind of makes sense. All right. Sixth period, I actually wrote really good one day. I didn't get in a hurry. All right, real quick, flip back to Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 9. Next week, we get to watch a movie. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's an extreme opportunity for y'all. Y'all are going to learn something. I don't want to. Okay, that's fine. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is black and white. Some of y'all are going, oh, crap. You're actually going to see a movie with acting, with a plot, with a storyline. Y'all aren't used to that. Movies today don't have any of that. They've got naked girls blowing up and cussing. That's what movies have to make you go see it. This doesn't have to have any of that because it actually has acting and a storyline and a plot and camera angles, and it's, you'll hate it the first day because it's got to set it up. By the last day, you'll love it. That's a promise. So we got Article 1, Section 9. I was done with the wrong way. Anybody found it yet? I've been talking. What you got? Yep. Congress, the federal government at that time can have, I don't know why they didn't mark this out, could not have any say over the slave trade. Habeas corpus. Right, that's the big one. Habeas corpus. What can Congress not do?
Not give you a trial.
What's it say there?
You gotta see the judge before you're.
Congress cannot suspend habeas corpus. Means that has to be done. Congress cannot deny that to anybody. So habeas corpus is going to be included. A bill of attainder, and I've heard of that, and I remember that now. Let me look that up real quick because I forgot what it is now. I'll be so mad with it. Bills of attainder, ex post facto. I'll give a prize to the first person that finds it.
Yeah, bill of a bill is an act of the legislature declaring a person or a group of persons guilty of some crime and punishing them often without trial.
Okay, yeah, like get a whole group, not an individual trial, but a whole group of people. Yes. Would you like, Joe, got an RCA connector? I got a paper clip, which I only have one of those.
Well, I'll take that paper clip.
Wait, hold up. I got something great here for you. So, right now you're taking a paper clip. I have a Green Bay Packard mechanical pencil that may or may not work, and I think it has lead. Pencil. Check it out. Can you believe I'm giving that away?
Oh, that's crazy.
I'll never use pencils. There you go, Joe. Way to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Direct taxes. Direct taxes. I don't know why they don't have a line through this. Because what would it mean to have a direct tax? If I tax you indirectly, that means you pay somebody and then they pay the tax. If I tax you directly, who's paying the tax? This is income tax. Direct taxes, they actually say capitation in here, not decapitation. Income. Income taxes are illegal. Except, what did the 16th Amendment do? It said now you can do it. I don't know why they didn't draw a line through that. No export taxes. You cannot, we can charge import taxes. We can't tax stuff going out. And they cannot favor one state over another. They do it all the time, but they're not supposed to. The big ones here, these right here, that really affects us. This has to do with due process, right? Are we cool on that, due process? All right. This next one, we already said this. We said one of them. States cannot do what?
Deny you pay use of ordinance.
Well, that's true. They can't print money. States are not allowed to print their own money. Anybody ever been to the dollar plant down there at the, what do you call it, the Mint? I've never been there. One down there in, what's it, not Lake Worth. Yeah, it's close to Lake Worth, Saginaw. Saginaw, that big building over there. They make money there. I've never been there.
Never in 6th grade that made you go. I went to creek in 6th grade.
Yeah. Did you see the creek? That's weird to have. They also, states are not allowed to make up their own army. We do have the state militias. You got the National Guard, but that's under the federal military. All that stuff is. Governors can call them out for stuff. If you're in the National Guard, what's your job most of the time? Clean up after floods and tornadoes. In Texas, that's your job. They call you out to clean up for floods and tornadoes most of the time. That is not a bad gig. If you're going to college somehow, it can help you pay for college. That's not a bad deal. You know, you really do not a whole lot. You might get asked to do a lot, but it really can help you in college and stuff. It's good. It's good. It's a good idea. All right, full faith and credit. Remember that one? I think we did. Yeah, I know we mentioned this. I think we did. No, we didn't. That was college. Me and Little Christy got married in Texas. She at least did that. If we moved to Arkansas, are we still married? No. Remember, we're not related. But even if we live in Arkansas, we're still considered married because each state has got to recognize the other state's stuff. That's what full faith and credit means. You just now got that one? The plane just landed? Okay. It's not funny. It's not funny. Does that make sense? All the states have to recognize other states' stuff. Colt has a Texas license plate on his vehicle. He's got a Texas driver's license. And the last couple of years, he's lived in Wyoming. If he gets pulled over, is he going to get arrested for not having a Wyoming driver's license? No. They recognize Texas driver's license. If he's going to live and coach there and work there full time forever, now he's got to establish residency, or however you say that. Okay? But they recognize each state's stuff.
They do pull you over more.
They might look for more, yeah. Maybe.
Because they don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Crossing state lines.
Maybe so.
Bad stuff.
Now, I'll throw this out there. Several years ago, and it doesn't matter what you feel about this. You know, there's two sides to this, and I get it. I can sure listen to and argue stuff with it. About 15 years ago, there was about 3 or 4 states that allowed gay marriage. Some states didn't. Is that a problem? Not philosophy-wise. Is it a problem that some states have a type of marriage and other states don't? Yes, it is. You can't have that. Because, full faith and credit, states have to recognize other states' stuff. And this is an actual thing that happened. These 2 guys went to Vermont. They got married. They moved to Houston. They wanted a divorce. Couldn't get a divorce. Why not? Texas did not consider their marriage. So they were not allowed to get a divorce. They had to go back to Vermont, live there for 6 months, get a divorce, and then go on with their lives. And at that time, and y'all can just guess what I feel about this. I said it's either got to be every state is the same, every state's got it, or no state's got it. Because we can't have part of it. Because this doesn't work. McCullough versus Maryland. Y'all probably heard of Marbury versus Madison, and we'll talk about that later. But McCullough versus Maryland. I always think of chainsaws. It used to be McCullough chainsaws. That's not what it is. They didn't have chainsaws back in the 1800s. This is one of the early Supreme Court decisions, and this had to do with, this established that the federal government would have supremacy over the state governments. Had to do with, canals and commerce, interstate commerce. But this said federal government was going to be the parent, and the states were going to be the kids. If you're going to have a country, we talk about confederacy. If you're going to have a country, does the federal government have to be able to put the foot down and say, here's how to carry the cabbage, if the country's going to work? Federal government's got to have overall control. The state's got some rights and gets to do stuff. If the kids are in charge, that's not good. You're going to have candy instead of steaks. We don't have steaks. We have meat sometimes. We have meat sometimes. I can't wait. Someday coming up, sometime, but Christy's going to make chicken fried steak. Isn't that a good day? You see that chicken fried steak sitting there? Man. I know. Didn't Titan. Yeah, Titan came along. Really ate into the food budget there. Thanks, Titan. Should be Thanksgiving. Ribs.
I thought you did that on New Year's, or do you do both?
Depends on the budget. Thanksgiving, we do ribs on Thanksgiving. Why have turkey when you can have ribs? No.
Turkey's not that good.
I wonder. It's been about 10 years since the Packers played on Thanksgiving. Just imagine ribs and Thanksgiving and playoff game that night. How about that? Be awesome. I'd cry that day. I would cry all day. If we had Packers, ribs, and a playoff game, I'd be balling the whole day. All right, grants and aid, categorical grants, block grants. What do you know about the word grant?
That's like you get money.
It's money that you don't have to pay back. It's money that's given. Right?
It's called like an apple grant.
I'm not going to ask you this. I might. Maybe. Grants in aid and categorical grants are very similar. You spelled it. Okay, fine. Thank you. The federal government has money. They really don't, but they do. They just go, we got money. They will give money to the states. And really all this stuff. All this stuff is money from the federal government. And it goes, this is very specific. This is less specific. Let me explain. Okay. Let's say the federal government gives money to Texas for education. If it is a categorical grant, that money will go, this has to be spent on teachers. Teacher salaries. That's a categorical grant. Very specific. A block grant might be given to Texas to say this has to be spent on education. Whatever you need, it's a chunk of money. Chunk of money. And Texas can spend it on education however they want to. Little Christy got her teacher certificate that way. She got a grant from the state of Texas, which was a block grant for people to get their teacher certificates. So it's money given to the states. This is really specific. Grants and aid are kind of like block grants, but just as long as you know that, we're good. and healthcare. You don't have to write nothing down here. I just put that down, and it's kind of died down some. What's the problem with healthcare? It's extremely expensive. I know I told y'all this probably. Dr. Smith is on the, that's funny to say. Dr. Smith, I had him as a freshman, he's on the school board. He's a surgeon in Decatur. He graduated in 2001. And he started being a surgeon 3 years ago? 2-3 years ago? Spent a lot of time in school, spent a lot of money in school, took a lot of loans out to go to medical school. So it costs him a lot of money. Costs a lot of money to become a doctor, right? I heard that about 15 years ago, I saw some report. They were talking about to be a doctor in South Texas. I don't know why it was just South Texas. It costs $250,000 to be a doctor a year, which means you get paid after you receive your $251,000. That's when your salary kicks in. When you have your loan payments, your malpractice insurance, your equipment costs, you're paying your people, after you've done all that, and then you start getting paid. So it's very expensive. What about research for all these new, for cures, medicines, procedures, the equipment they use? That's expensive. So there's no such thing as free. There is no free healthcare. It's just who's going to pay for it. Insurance costs are through the roof. Insurance is a scam anyway. I'm sorry if any of y'all's family does insurance. It's a scam. It's a shell game, you know. I wish we didn't have insurance. I wish we had medical savings accounts where instead of paying for insurance, you put money back in this little account. Y'all ever heard of those little flex card things? That's kind of what this is. You pay cash to the doctor. So instead of paying $400 a month for insurance, you pay $400 a month into this little account, and then if you need to go to the doctor, you pay cash for it. And it would lower the cost of medicine. Y'all ever had a surgery and anybody had, I don't want to get in your business. Anybody had a surgery and didn't have insurance and look, they were able to show you here's what it costs without insurance. It's like 2/3 to less than half. I mean, it's really low compared to what insurance is. What we're trying to do with this healthcare deal is help people pay for expensive healthcare. I would rather them try to find ways to lower the cost of healthcare, if that makes sense. Don't ask me how to do that. I don't know how to do that, but I'd rather look. I think we're looking at the butt of the horse, and you turn around and look at the face of the horse. If the government's paying for healthcare, which I think is eventually some people's goals, because that would make us dependent on the government. Who determines whether or not you get the surgery? Government. Who determines whether or not you get the procedure? If you're 88 and you're on your deathbed, if you're paying for it, are you getting it? Yes. If they're paying for it, are you getting it? No. The government can't handle the post office. I don't want the government handling healthcare. Does that make sense? Now, I don't want people to go without. You should not go without healthcare. But I think we're looking at it the wrong way myself. So. All right. Keep hold of this. Put your notebook. Make sure your name's on it. Hope this works.